Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I have an absolute amazing guest with me today, Emily King. She is an online coach. She is a Australian figure champion in the WBFF, a mama of Luna, an absolute inspiration to so many people online in the fitness community, CEO and founder of King Bodies, and an absolute pleasure to have you on my podcast today, Em. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for that introduction.
I look
It's
sorry
lovely to be
cut you
here.
off.
No, you're right.
I look forward to hearing your story today because like for anyone go check out Emily's like socials. Like if you want some inspiration to go to the gym and to work on your health, look no further. Like Emily_King Bodies on Instagram. Insane. Like a recent reel that I'm looking at now, like it just makes me want to go train and be better with my training and train harder. But I know there's a story behind there. So I'd love to hear your story, like most of my guests share. And then we'll go from there. So Em, for anyone that doesn't know you or your story, I'd love to know your story. How did you become who you are today?
Wow. All right. So we could take a huge step back. During school, I was never like an athlete. I wasn't someone that was great at sports. I tried them all and failed miserably at many team sports. But I tried. I kept trying. And really the ones that I did well at were the solo sport, like running or cross country. The endurance and the ability to push through mental boundaries was always a challenge for me, but something that I really enjoyed. I struggled a lot during school with an eating disorder, which led much into my early 20s. And after school, I finished and I became a nurse. So I was actually doing registered nursing for 6 years post school. During that time, I was like a workaholic. So I studied, I worked 2 or 3 jobs, and to the point where I got to a place with nursing where I didn't really like it anymore, or the shift work was really, it's a lot. For anyone that has done shift work, it is a lot. So I transitioned out of that into online coaching, or specifically at the time, personal training, which I grew so much love for, especially the years after school. And that's when I actually started competing as well, was when I was doing the combination of nursing, competing, transitioning to PT, all of the things all at once. So it was a pretty hectic time. And then moving towns, I probably did that 4 or 5 times within a good 2-year period, just based on where I wanted to live, where the opportunities took me in terms of jobs. And I landed in Gold Coast in 2017, essentially. And that's when I had to take up online training as opposed to personal training because of desperation to make ends meet. I wasn't earning a lot at the time. I think I can remember I came down here, very split decision after splitting with an ex-partner of mine. And I came down here within a week of doing so. And I was like, shit, I don't have a job. And I can't really I was picking up some nursing shifts, but it was quite hard at the time to do so in the areas that I wanted to work. And then I just really solely focused on my online coaching and marketing that to the ability that I could. Obviously, I didn't have any money to put behind marketing or Facebook marketing or paying a graphic designer or anything like that. I just kind of launched all that myself through help with some friends that had been in the industry. But when I got into online coaching, I was some of the first people in that space doing it well. So it was great. And I focused solely on that. And within, I think now it's been 18, I think 20, 6 or 7 years. And now we have a company that has 3 full-time employees, 1 contractor, and a little bit of a marketing team behind us. So it's cool. It's been awesome building a business. It's what I actually really love doing is building businesses and building a brand. And then
no, keep going.
No, it's like, and then on the outside of that, I have been competing as well for 10 years now. I started in ICN, which is a natural competition, and then I moved to NABA for a year, and then I moved to WBFF, which I have been ever since, going up the ranks. So I last competed in UK in 2019, and I was it wasn't my division, unfortunately. So I had to go down a division, which I did not fit in because I was way too jacked and lean for it. But I got second there, and I got the Australian champion here in Australia before we left to go overseas. So competing has been fantastic lately. I'm currently, 3 weeks out of the Worlds comp again, which I have done before, and I placed second last time. So I'm hoping, not to even, I don't think I've kind of pump myself up to win it, but I'm so excited just to get up on stage and have a better physique this time, and see how I stack up against the girls now.
Incredible. That you've got an incredible story. You've just the stuff I really admire about you, Em, is just the standard that you have for yourself when it comes to obviously health and fitness. And you're also a parent as well, so to have the physique that you have after going through childbirth is an inspiration in itself. So, I guess something that kind of stood out to me. I'd love to know if you're okay talking about this.
Yeah.
I guess eating disorders is something that's I think shows up a lot these days, and a lot of people do struggle with it. I guess, how have you been able to go from I guess where you were younger, maybe shed some light on that a little bit more, of how you were now to, I guess, how you've dealt with it, or how you're continuously dealing with it, or I guess where you're at with it, and maybe some tips along the way of other people that can maybe grow in that area of their life as well.
Yeah, well, I guess I get started in high school. I went to an all-girls school, and I loved my school. Nah, I was going to say that, then I caught myself. I didn't love school. My school itself, like the community, that was really nice, but I really struggled through school, not fitting in and feeling like I was always like the odd one out, and I didn't really have what I felt like was really close friends. I was kind of on the outside of groups, so I was constantly trying to find ways to stand out, or fit in, or just to be noticed. And I think that's where my eating disorder came from as well. So I think I remember like vividly being like, when I get really skinny, they'll notice me, and they'll look at me. So I remember writing down in a diary like how much I ate that day, and then trying to eat less the next. And it would have been like a cup of soup, 2 pieces of toast, a cup of tea, like something ridiculous like that. And at the time, like, I think as a young girl, you don't think that you're doing anything bad until like you look back on it and you're like, wow, what was I doing that for? Like, but a lot of it came down to attention, and I may be attention seeking in its own sense, but I got a handle on that when I actually started competing. So it went on for quite a while, not the restricting, but more so of like a cycle of overeating, binging, and then it just going around, and then guilt and shame behind that, and never feeling like at ease with what I was putting my body. And then it was education for me that really helped. It was reading. I couldn't afford a coach when I started competing, so I was reading like bodybuilding.com. I don't know if you remember that. All of their forums about what to eat and all that kind of stuff. And I was following diets off there, which were ridiculous, because obviously we know that you can't just follow someone else's diet. It doesn't work like that. But at the time, I had no idea. And calories and macros weren't really a thing. We were still meal planning. And the old comp diet was like boiled chicken and broccoli and rice, and it's fantastic. But there was a point, and I remember this as well, where I was like, in order for me to progress in this sport, I need to eat in order to grow. And that was just after I had learned, obviously, about not really energy balance, but just the mechanisms behind growing muscle. And I was like, what I'm doing right now isn't serving the purpose of me wanting to do well in the sport that I'm doing. So I have to eat enough to grow. And so that's when I started actually incorporating more food into my diet and more structured phases of eating and training. But then obviously with competition and the hormonal fluctuations that you have in terms of ghrelin and leptin and all that type of thing in terms of hunger signaling, I have found in hindsight that some of my earlier preps, my eating and restricting came back over time. So I would relapse into like a state of under eating, overeating. And it wasn't until after I've been out of that I've been like, okay, that was a relapse back into eating disorder. But probably over the last 3 or 4 years has been the best space for me with my relationship with food.
Awesome.
And it's actually like, I'm hungry now, but it's only because I'm in comp prep, and that's what's to be expected. But yeah, no, it's been a long journey. I think for women that are going through it, like I wish that I had reached out for help earlier. And I wish that I had talked to someone about it, because it was only through my own reflection that I actually found that I had that problem, when in like reality, it was there for quite a while before I picked it up myself. So yeah, reaching out for help is such a big thing. And I know a lot of people really struggle to do so because they may see it as weakness, but in order for us to grow, we need to be aware of where we're possibly going wrong, and how to navigate that, because eating and fueling your body for life is so important. And a lot of people don't do it well enough, and a lot of women are really struggling in cycles of under eating, and it's just not serving their purpose of health or well-being. And it's a really big place. A lot of people are still doing it, and I can notice it in clients, especially if they've had families that were obese, and they have now gone into cycles of restricting and overeating, and restricting and overeating. But it's just diet culture in general that we're trying to shift over time, but it's hard when it's been what everyone has really grown up with.
You've even the way you worded that, I haven't. I've done a fair few podcasts with people in the fitness space. Coming from, I guess, the fitness industry for a long time, and just the way your level of consciousness is spectacular. The way that I was curious because maybe if I could get some timestamps. How old were you when I guess you started doing the thing where like you tried to see if you could eat less the next day? How old were you at that time?
13 probably.
And when did the consciousness of, like you said, you're doing it for attention, like that can be hard for some people to admit that. Or if someone even tells, like if I was to go up and tell someone who has an eating disorder right now, say you're doing it to get attention, they could be very triggered and sensitive and bite back by that. How long did it, so from 13, how long did it take you to have, did you have that consciousness straight away, or did it take you a while to get that level of consciousness? And how did you get the consciousness is the curious part. I'd love to know.
I think in the moment that I knew what I was doing, but you obviously don't want to admit to yourself that like you're doing it for a reason that sounds like selfish and silly. But as humans, we do things that we sometimes can't explain, right? And then it's honestly just been like over time that I've been like, hey, that was an issue that I had. And like I wouldn't say that it's been like probably from like 13 to 19, it was the worst. Then I would go in cycles after that, where I would be like, good, relapse, good, relapse. But there was always this like undertone that I just didn't know what I was doing with my health. And that was worse. Like, so I say education is everything. As soon as I learned more about, energy balance and what to eat, and, just how to be consistent with that, and how to have a lifestyle around food, like that was the biggest change.
How do you have any recommendations of resources or people, whether it's yourself, that can just start people maybe to get that education? Because you're right, because I live in a world where I believe everyone's doing the best with what they've got. And if
Yeah.
they've been told that this way of eating, diet culture says you need to do X, Y, Z to be skinny, and skinny even is the goal, which I don't personally believe is the goal. They're doing the best of what they've got. So do you have any recommendation, any resources, any books, or any programs or courses that people could start to get educated in this area?
That's a really hard one, because there is like so much like misinformation out there, and then
Exactly.
everyone has their own bias, right? So I started because I actually got on to coaching with Mark Carroll. So I would always recommend like people like him, Lane Norton, like just people that are one backed by science, and then that also are able to dumb it down to a degree for people to digest, because it can be really like sometimes so scientific, and you're like, it doesn't need to be like that.
Yeah.
I went and did like many nutrition certificates, but the one that really resonated with me was Clean Health, and Lane Norton's courses as well are fantastic, just to make it really simple, so those would be two that I would definitely recommend. But just also like, finding someone on social media that is speaking the language that you want to learn. Like I talk about it all the time on my Instagram, whether people like pick it up or not, but that's the goal behind my coaching, is to help people navigate what is a healthy lifestyle. How do I make that fit into my lifestyle? Not to be perfect, but just to make improvements. And because that's at the end of the day what we should be looking for, not something that's like, you're going to stick to for 8 weeks and then fail at. Like that's useless. So we need something that will take your lifestyle, improve it a little bit, over time, because I didn't get to where I am now by changing overnight. It's been a process of years for me to make connections and understanding and get to where I am.
What are some of the you triggered a thought in me, coming from the industry. Like I'd see people that will do like say 6-week challenges, 8-week challenges, 12-week challenges, and they'll get them to do these fucking extreme things that no one can sustain. And
Yeah.
whenever I would run a challenge, we'd do like an info night, I'd say, guys, this challenge, I want you guys to push yourself, but I don't want you to do something that you wouldn't continue after the challenge, because what's the fucking point of the challenge then? You just do
Yeah.
something, you're literally doing something to put it back on then. So
Yeah.
I'd rather you go, say, instead of from 0 to 10 to go back to 0, I'd rather go from 0 to 2 and stay at 2. And the next
Yeah.
time go to a 3, etc. I'm just
Yeah.
curious, with that analogy from 0 to 2, or just improving things, what are some of the things that you've done for yourself or that you recommend for clients to start to just maybe level up their health and fitness, their life? You mentioned the word lifestyle, like having a sustainable, healthy, holistic, whatever words you want to use. Just what
Yeah.
are maybe some of the go-tos that have worked well for you, whether it's maybe tracking or whether you're a fan of it or not, whether it's, I'm not sure. I'm really curious. What would you do?
Okay, so I reckon like it depends on where people have come from, right? If they're like at a place where they've just been eating like junk food and not moving their body, and they don't do anything for self-care, I would be looking at like the simple things, like going for a walk in the morning, getting outside and listening to a podcast of some sort of like, I listen to a lot of like mindset mentor, if you listen to him,
Yeah.
like Lewis Howes,
Oh, I
Jay
love him.
Shetty, like any of those, like Gary V, if you're into business stuff, Tony Robbins, like there's just so much out there, and it just takes you out of your head, your space, into a different space that you haven't experienced before, to listen to something else that's going to like level you up that little bit. And it can be 5 minutes, but it can be so much in terms of like what it's going to open up, in terms of like you said, your consciousness as well. So going for a walk daily, listening to a podcast, that's where you can start, and I think if people just did that, we would have like people being healthier and being more productive and being more positive. And it comes down to like nutrition is obviously like a big place that we like to focus on, and it's just about looking at something that's going to be maintainable over a long period of time. Like you said, no stupid fad diets that you can only maintain for 2 or 3 days, because that's the issue. A lot of people go like, I'll try keto, or I'll try like, low, something like high protein, low carb, something like, or carnivore, or any of those like diet methods, right? Like they're all methods that you can use, but is it going to be sustainable for a long period of time? So just looking at the quality of food that you eat, we are so much about quality of food, because what you put into your body is going to dictate the way that you function. So if you put shitty fuel in, you're going to have a shitty function. Like your body is the only one that you have ever. So we need to treat it with more respect than just to constantly thrash it and abuse it. So the quality of food would be somewhere where I would start, like just making little changes. Like if you're constantly eating breakfast out or on the go or grabbing takeaway, like change that to a home cooked meal. slowly, one day at a time, and make the small changes. If you're, tracking or not tracking and you want to track, because at the end of the day, we only track our calories and macros like to get from where we are to get to where we want to be in a specific amount of time. It's a method that we use for convenience, but also like the ability to know what to do. That's the only reason. Like, we don't track, like we need to know why we track behind, because a lot of people like get given calories and macros, but they're like, why am I doing this? What is the reason? But it's like, it's a structure for what we're doing. Like, I like to say, like, you wouldn't go to a building site and just throw bricks around and expect a house to be built. Like,
Yep.
That's what tracking is to me. It's a structure, it's a plan, it's a guideline. But yeah, so like tracking can be used definitely to improve someone's body composition or body weight, because it gets us again from where we are to where we want to be in a time efficient manner. But it helps us bring awareness to what we're doing with our food. Like, some people don't realize that their breakfast of like a latte and a muffin and a bliss ball could be like 700 calories, and that's like half their day, or like a third of their day gone in a meal. So for me, tracking just brings awareness to what we're doing, and therefore we can make changes to get a certain result.
It sounds like great points, by the way. I'll ask one more question on that, then I'll ask the next question.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples, like practical ones, like what are some like hacks that people can do? Like even for, so that's some safe beginners. Say someone like me. So say I'm I guess relatively healthy, train 4-5 times a week, eat fast food maybe once a fortnight, once a month, but
Yes.
maybe some little 1%ers that whether it's sleep hacks, morning routine. I know what are like some hacks that you've been able to
Hacks.
yeah, like I'm a
In
hack
terms of
person.
like in terms of like improving health, or like
Yeah,
just
yeah, I was gonna say
big health.
wellness, performance, nutrition, health, just I guess anything that's just really resonated with you.
Okay. Making sure you have enough protein. That's like one big thing. Like it doesn't matter whether you're in a cut or a build or a maintain, or you're not tracking, whatever, just making sure you have enough protein in your diet is one big one. And just like an easy way to look at that is like, I have 3 meals a day. I'm going to have a good amount of protein in each of those meals, not just one of those meals, or a big lot in one and then not so much in the other. In terms of like physical health, it's just so beneficial, especially for women as we get older. Our ability to synthesize muscle decreases. For men as well, like all of our hormones levels, or all of your hormone levels are impacted as well. So, getting enough protein is really important. Sleep and recovery are one of those like underrated tools, like people don't understand how much it comes into play with our ability to lose weight, our ability to maintain muscle, our ability just to think and function appropriately. So like, instead of scrolling on your phone until 11 o'clock at night, like put your phone away at 8 o'clock and get a good hours of screen free time. And then, read a nice book, do some meditation, go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time. I'm a big person about routine and structure. And I think a lot of people know how shitty they feel when they like, snooze their alarm and don't get up until 9 o'clock, and how groggy that makes you feel. And so set an alarm, get up in the morning each day. I think another tool is just awareness. Self-awareness is like one thing that a lot of people really do not have, and that it takes time to gain. But, just the understanding that like we have so much control over one thing, ourselves, and where we go in life comes down to our awareness to go, okay, that didn't work out for me, like what can I change next time? And they're in a reflection about that, because I think a lot of people float through life and things happen, but they're like, oh, why did that happen? Oh, I'm so shit, like, I'm such a failure. But in reality, like, if they've just brought awareness to that situation, they would be able to be like, hey, that happened for this reason, or that happened because I did this, and I'm going to take responsibility about that, and I'm going to move forward in a more productive way next time.
That's powerful. You've used some words through this podcast already: consciousness, meditation, and awareness, what you're just talking about then. How has that played a part in, I guess, your journey, especially being at the highest end of, I guess, the fitness sort of spectrum? How's it played a part in it? And then the second question is, how did you get into it? How does one work on self-awareness? How does one work on consciousness? How does one practice meditation if that's something that you do? So how
Yeah.
has that played a part in your life and your journey as a fitness professional, as a mother, as a trainer, as a coach? And then how does one get into stuff like this and start to improve those areas of their life?
Um, what was the first question again?
So how is that was a
Yeah.
big mouthful. How does consciousness, meditation,
Yeah.
and awareness, how has
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
played a part in your life as a coach, a mother, a fitness athlete, a professional? How has it
Yeah.
played a part of your life?
So it has played a huge part in and especially in like the latter years. Like I think like a lot of people, you kind of float through your early 20s and you're just, things happening and you don't know what's happening, or you don't know how to control or react, and it's weird, and you think the world is against you, and that's definitely how I was at one stage. It probably, you wouldn't think that now, but there was a time when I thought like the world was just ass fucking me and I didn't know what was happening. So it really like for me it came at a time when I was like really low. So I was probably like my early 20s, and I had these awful relationships that had happened to me. Not for me, it was at the time it was to me, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like I have no idea what's going on. And it wasn't until a point where I can again vividly remember going, there's no one that's going to get me out of this place other than myself and my own learnings in this space. And I have to be able to see what's happening, reflect on it, and grow from it. And it was at the time when I was listening to a lot of Tony Robbins, and that really helped me out of that hole. Um, but meditation has been one that has been more of a recent thing, and I think a lot of people, like, the industry has blown up meditation, um, for like, you have to do it like 30 minutes a day, and it has to be like lying down and closing your eyes and doing this. But
Mm,
meditation takes so many different forms, right? Like it could be anything. So for me, like meditation has been a way of bringing myself back into my body, because I am someone that is in my head a lot, especially in my younger years, like just constantly doing things, always trying to, do another thing on top of another thing without finishing the other thing. And like I said, like letting things, like life just kind of felt like it was hard at one stage, but it was the fact that I just wasn't actually taking a moment to sit, be still, like acknowledge, reflect, and learn. And I think there's so much power in that, because like we can let life kind of just go sometimes, and it's not until we look back and go, I've missed like a whole year of my life because I actually haven't reflected on anything, or I haven't learned from
really?
anything. I just let life do life, so meditation has been one of those things that I always come back to, and it doesn't need to be like 30 minutes of sitting here like meditation for me is like more like I will sit outside on the balcony and look out into the sky and just marvel at like how blue the sky is, or how green the water is, or when it's looking at Luna, I'll just sit there and I'll stare at her, and I'll, count the freckles on her face or something like that. Like just time to bring myself back into the moment. And I think that's really important for a lot of people, because we don't live in the moment enough. We don't
Mm.
live for the moment, and we can miss it, and then we get to the end of the day and we're like, was I even present at all in that day? And for an athlete, it's been huge. Like I think a lot of people think bodybuilders are just broncs that, get into the gym and lift heavy weights and eat our chicken and broccoli. But the most successful bodybuilders are ones that are able to be really self-aware of our actions and what like happens from those actions, and being able to reflect and apply. So
Mm.
and that goes for, I think, all business people and all athletes. Like we're not just, silly. The most conscious of us are the most successful, because we know how to be in the moment and actually get the most out of it.
That's powerful. Really, really powerful. And I think that speaks to a lot of people that get so caught up with the hustle culture,
Mm,
whether that's
mm.
the fitness industry, business, life, parenting. I'd actually like to touch on parenting for you, because amongst all the achievements you're doing and the physique that you're able to maintain, you're a mother. You've had a
Yeah.
young one, baby Luna.
Yeah.
I guess I guess I would love to just know a general idea of, I guess, your experience being a mother while maintaining fitness. This is a question I generally have for me as well as the listeners is like, what's your beliefs around, I guess, training during that time? Because I've had clients who they'll train right up until like the 7 month mark. I've had
Yeah.
people that stop straight away because some doctors told them to do it. And I don't know what's right or wrong because I guess I'm not an expert in this area. So I'm curious what your journey was like from a practical sense. And then I might ask some questions from there.
Yeah, like my journey was good. When I say good, okay, I have the personality that I'm like, I'll just do things because I'm structured and I'm disciplined, and that's why I'm an athlete. Like, so I'm I remain very structured during pregnancy, and that's what really helped me. So I would always either go for a walk or do a workout, because the less that you move, the less that you want to move, because it is uncomfortable. There's a lot of changes going on. You don't feel motivated ever. So like I just kept myself in a routine, and that really helped me, like mentally and physically, and also with recovery postpartum. So I trained up until I think the few days before I went into labor. I was actually going for a huge walk on Burleigh that morning, and then I got back. So, I stayed active because that's part of who I am and my lifestyle. And also it just helps so much with pain and pain management, and more so mental health, because again, I went from being like an athlete to pregnant, which is a huge change. And it was a hard identity shift as well.
Mm.
So I tried to stay as with me as possible, because we give up so much as women from like our bodies prior. We pretty much just give it to the universe for 9 months and then we give it away again after. But I just tried to stay within who I was. And that really helped me. So in terms of like, there are like so many different individual circumstances for people that are pregnant. Like some people will not be able to train during for whatever reason. And that's obviously a decision that needs to be made by like the doctor or an OBGYN. Like I would always suggest seeing an OBGYN over just a general doctor, just to get, because they have obviously
What is that? I actually don't know what that is. What is that?
obstetrics. So it's like a specific person, a doctor for pregnant women and postpartum. Yeah.
Sure.
So I would always go for someone that's specifically more along the pregnancy route, So and I would get a second opinion from them about what they think. But a lot of women are able to train throughout pregnancy. And I think sometimes it comes down to, if that person wasn't conditioned and wasn't disciplined and wasn't structured pre-pregnancy, it makes pregnancy 100% harder, right? Because they don't have that structure or that routine in place. They're just trying to like continue what they're doing, but it becomes difficult because they have pain and discomfort and, zero motivation to move out of the house sometimes. So a lot of people do drop off their training regimes, which is obviously not preferable, because it is actually so beneficial for mum and baby to stay really active during pregnancy.
Did you struggle at all? Because you alluded to it, like the identity lost or the identity shift from being a mother, because life gets put on hold to a degree.
Yeah.
And for someone who's not full identity, but you're in the industry where like your performance is based on your physique, based on how you look, and literally being pregnant literally directly impacts that. Did you have any challenge with that? I know a lot of people do, and maybe if you didn't get if it wasn't so challenging for you, why is that? But I guess to break it down to a one question at a time, did you have challenges during the pregnancy around your identity because your body was changing and you're in the industry where you're literally getting up on stage and judged for your body? Was that something that you experienced?
Yeah, 100%. So I struggled so hard, especially in that first trimester. I remember, I think because a lot of my friends are in the industry as well. And I remember I was getting jealous. I was getting jealous of the fact that they would be able to continue competing and getting lean and having abs. And I was pregnant, and it was really difficult for me. And those were moments where I really like struggle with my mindset, but I try not to judge myself, because it's not healthy to judge yourself in those moments. But I just let those thoughts come in and leave. But it was something that I really struggled with, and probably until like the second trimester, where I was like, this is my journey and this is a beautiful journey, and if I keep, you know, getting down on myself or being envious of anyone else's situation, I'm going to miss it, and then I'm going to look back and feel bad about the fact that I, you know, felt that way. So I had moments throughout the entire pregnancy where I was like, I love this, I love this, I hate this, I hate this. But it was really something that I tried to work on a lot, because I obviously coach pregnant women now, and they go through exactly the same thing. Like so many women do, and it's just not talked about because I think there's so much shame behind it. Because if you were to, you know, they're worried that if you say something to someone, like, you know, friend down the road, oh, like I feel really like I don't want to be pregnant like right now, like I've just, you know, I wish I had abs, like they would turn back at you and be like, how dare you say that, like, you know, this is beautiful, and shame you for it. But it's the reality is a lot of people go through it, and it shouldn't be something that we feel guilt around, because it is just a feeling. And when obviously we are so grateful for the opportunity to be pregnant and to fall pregnant and to carry life, but it's a lot, you know, it's a huge change, one that a lot of people, you know, won't understand until they're really in it and experiencing it. But yeah, it was a really tough time for me.
Do you have any advice? Like you said, you work with clients who go through it. Do you have any advice on, I guess, not just getting through it, not being so hard on yourself, and yeah, just guiding them through that period?
Yeah, so I actually like encourage them to talk to other pregnant women, or like people that have been through the experience, because sometimes talking to someone that has been through it and understands it is so much better than talking to someone that's going to make you feel judged by it. And that was the biggest thing. It's like the fear of judgment through pregnancy is huge, especially like around weight gain, or, you know, anything like overdoing it. Like I got a lot from like working a lot, like I work a lot, but then they'd be like, you need to settle down, like you're gonna hurt yourself. Or even training, some people would be so like, not, they would be thinking of the old way. Like back in the day, the idea was when you got pregnant, you just lied down and did nothing. But now we know that movement is so beneficial for pregnancy. So like I got a lot of, oh, are you going to hurt the baby? Like all that kind
Yeah.
of thinking. So
What was that like? Because I've caught myself thinking that when I was younger,
yeah,
immaturely, because I don't understand it, and I had those
yeah,
same beliefs you meant to do nothing during that time. And then
yeah,
I'll see like CrossFitters doing like full on movements with
yeah,
the big belly popping out. I'm like, holy
yeah.
shit! Like, yeah. Did you obviously experience that, and how do you guide? What's your advice for people going through that as well?
I always just highlight the fact that there is so much research now about that how beneficial movement is, and it's just about limiting the risk of anything.
Yeah,
Sorry, Liz.
just saw the way I walked
Limiting
past.
limiting the risk of anything happening. So like contact sports, those types of things. Like obviously like skydiving, don't do that. Horse riding, like
Yeah.
where there could be actual that risk, and then being able to manage that risk. So, you know, I have been like the I guess people's focus of shitty comments for a very long time. So I'm immune to it to to a degree.
Yeah. I'm watching partner and
Luna.
Luna in the background, having a good time. Em, you're an inspiration to a lot of people. Something you've brought up. It's a small thing, but I actually
Yeah.
I resonate with this, and I'll just maybe you've got a little bit more to shed on it. You just mentioned about reaching out for help. So
Yeah.
many people struggle to do that. It sounds so
Yeah.
simple. Just reach out for some help. Were
Yeah.
you always able to do that from a young age? Did you have to learn that ability? And yeah, have you always been able to reach out for help?
No, so I come from a family of very strong, stubborn women that don't like to reach out for help or say that we're struggling. And it's probably the reason why I have gone so far in what I do, because I just do a lot of it myself. But um, it is something that over especially the last 2 or 3 years, especially after having Luna, like it's something that I've had to put my ego away, because I think sometimes we think that it is weakness, but it's really not. Like we are meant to be in a community of people. We're meant to be surrounded by people, you know, like we're not meant to just work on our own. We thrive when we're asking for help and things like that. So yeah, it is really difficult, and I can totally resonate with a lot of people that struggle to do so. But it is one thing that, like, I think sometimes you need to be like, can I do this on my own? Am I able to do this on my own, and have that really hard conversation with yourself? And if not, like, okay, where do I start? Because you will feel better after you ask for that help. It's just that initial jump that's really scary for a lot of people.
Absolutely agree. And just for anyone that's listening to this, just to mirror what you're saying, is we are herd creatures. We evolved in herds and communities, and to feel like you're weak, or I think it's actually stronger to reach out. I think that shows more strength rather than suffering in silence. So yeah, please. I heard it when you spoke earlier, and I wrote it down as a note. To start to wrap things up, Em, I'd love to know, I guess, your experience now going back into the comp world. How are you feeling personally? How are you approaching this maybe differently now that you're a mother, now that you're more experienced? You're obviously the wisest you've ever been. How are you approaching this differently? What's it like?
Wow, prep this time, or just even getting back into the industry, has been a journey. I was actually so done with competing at one stage. I think it was partly due to like that transition of my identity. I was like, I don't need competing anymore. Like, I'm more than that, which we are. We are more than our sport and our, our hobby and our job and whatever else we are. Like, and I was like, I'm going to do running, and I'm going to do all these things to see that, like, I'm capable at changing, directions. And then I fell back into bodybuilding again, which was always going to happen because I do love it. But it's been different this time with Luna. Obviously, like, it is such a selfish sport, and you do need a lot of time to dedicate to it, like all of the time. It isn't something that you should ever do in halves. It's a full-time job essentially. So finding the time to do things has been a challenge, but not impossible. It's doable. It's just about being more mindful about where I'm spending my time and allocating more appropriately. The self-doubt has been a new thing this time. I think I've doubted myself a little bit more coming back into this, just because in the back of my mind, I'm going, well, these girls didn't take off 12 months from having a baby and being pregnant, and, but at the end of the day, I know that I can only get up there and do the best that I can. I look the best that I ever have, so I should be happy about that. But I'm extremely critical about myself, awesome. Which makes me a good athlete. So it's been a big journey back. And I think, again, this prep, like, if I'm being honest, has highlighted the fact that my priorities have shifted a lot from the old Emily and the athlete Emily to now the mum, business owner, athlete Emily. Like, I love spending time with my daughter, and I love eating with my family and my friends, and I love social situations. So this has been difficult in the fact that obviously you give up a lot of the social aspects of life when you are competing, and that's been hard because I really enjoy that and I really value that more than I ever have.
You're someone that, and I take, and this is in no way this is a very generalization statement I'm making, is like, people without meeting you and hearing you speak, and I guess getting to know you more, you'd see someone like you online, and vulnerability doesn't scream out. It does not vulnerability, and you're so vulnerable, and I really value that, and I really admire that in you. Is that something? Just maybe this will be our last question. How have you been able to develop the skill of being vulnerable? Because it's something I've really enjoyed about this podcast so far.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, I feel like it's only been over the last couple of years. Prior to that, I was very much like, don't let them see your weaknesses, because, that's not going to get you clients or, people or followers or whatever. And I had a very aggressive approach to everything, like to my business, to the way that I talk to clients, to the way what I showed on social media. And then I realized that I'm just getting older, and it's so much better to just be honest and open with people, because you have better conversations and you attract better people. It's something that I work on every day. Like, you go to say something, I don't know, personally with me though, I go to say something and it'll be like, this is what I should say. And then it'll be like, but this is what I want to say. And I always go down there, this is what I want to say, because you're always going to have a better conversation on that end.
A question I've been asking myself, is this my ego self or my authentic self? That's something I've been
Yeah,
asking myself. So,
yeah.
Em, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to connect in future times as well. For anyone that's been listening and wants to connect with you, either just to say thank you or for services or anything of the anything else, where's the best place for them to find you?
I would say Instagram, but sometimes I'm really stuck on my inboxes. So if if you really want to talk to me on Instagram, just double message me and be like, "Hey, remember
Hey.
me?" Yeah, exactly. Don't feel bad about double messaging me. But Instagram is probably the best. It's just Emily_Pink Bodies.
Guys, thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. Em, thank you for your time. This has been an absolute incredible conversation. I value vulnerable and open conversation. So this has been really enjoyable for me. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much.